So I'm going to stand, even though it doesn't make a big difference if I'm sitting or standing. But I'll stay over here so I can see my notes. Thank you for having me here. So as James said, I am Jessie O'Donnell. I was born and raised in over on the west side of Lansing, went to Waverly Schools. I'm a mom of 3 crazy kids. Thank you. In my spare time, I like to binge watch Netflix. I play D&D with a group here at TechSmith. I'm also a Hufflepuff. I feel like this picture is a pretty accurate representation of my life. So my angsty teenage son that doesn't want to take pictures, my 2 girls in their eccentric outfits, and that aisle is not a coincidence that that picture is taken in.
That fireball over there?
Probably. It's the coping mechanism of parenting. So previously in my roles here at TechSmith, I've been here 18 years, so forever. And I've had lots of different roles all within marketing. My most previous role before the current one was an online community specialist, so working a lot with social media, talking with our customers, doing a lot of the social monitoring and response, and helping with some of that messaging that went out organically, so separate from paid advertising. Currently, I'm our influencer relations coordinator, so I get to talk with are really excited product advocates and influencers in industries that we want to be recognized in or that we want to get our messaging out to. I get to work with those influencers to write guest blog posts, or maybe we do like speaker sponsorships, things like that. My job right now is relationship building, basically. So lots of social media, lots of email, lots of talking. So my goal is to try and get like word of mouth recommendations from people to help us spread the word, because people listen to people over brands. So what I'm going to talk about today is social media to grow and build your professional network, and why I believe that is important. So one of the great things about social media, my favorite thing, is that it makes everyone accessible. So you can also argue that that is a negative because you're accessible by everyone. It breaks down all the walls. It gives you access to people that you might not typically have access to, people you don't see every day, or people that you've maybe heard of or followed online or heard at a conference, but you've never actually met in person. It makes it really easy to find people that have common interests, or maybe interests that you'd like to learn more about. You can find people that are experts in anything on social media. It works the other way as well. You can connect online with people that maybe you did meet at a conference, or maybe a meetup, where you might only see them once a year at this conference, or maybe you meet them one time only and you never see them again. You can connect online and continue your professional relationship there. You can continue learning and teaching each other that way, and through that you expose that person to your network, and it can expand and show you new resources. So I'm just going to kind of dive right into starting your social presence and your personal brand. So when we talk about social media, there are tons of different platforms, obviously. And choosing which platforms you want to be present on is really going to depend on your goal. So 3 things that I like to keep in mind is who's your audience? Do you want to stay in touch with family and friends? Is this a personal account? Is this going to be a completely professional network separate from work? Are you trying to build your own personal brand and increase awareness of things that you are doing personally? Are you advocating for your company or another topic? And then content. What type of content do you plan to post? Is it going to be just text? Are you going to have videos? Are you going to have photos? A combination? And then your intended outcome. Are you trying to generate sales? Are you trying to just make new connections? Are you looking for a new job? Or simply just trying to learn something? Are you just trying to educate yourself on a topic that maybe you're not familiar with or that you'd like to learn more about? So, and there are major differences between all the different platforms. They all operate pretty similarly. There's a way to to post content, there's a way to consume content, there's ways to interact with each other. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I use all the different networks. So LinkedIn is purely professional, and I'll be completely honest that I neglect that one the most because it doesn't have as much value to me. I find more value in the relationships that I'm building and the conversations I'm having there. But LinkedIn is purely professional. People are using it for recruiting. They're using it for thought leadership. They're sharing articles that maybe they're writing or they've found that they think others with other like-minded individuals will find important or relevant. Facebook is personal. That's where all of your aunts are and the people that you see at family reunions. And they still want to see pictures of your kids, you know. I do have some professional connections there as well. I have customers that will use Facebook Messenger to, 11 o'clock on Friday night, hey, I've got a Camtasia question. And we have that kind of relationship where they know that they can message me anytime and they will find you wherever you are. So, like I said, that can be a good and a bad thing, but for your customers or your peers, it's a good way for them to have access to you and for you to, it kind of takes it out of that 8 to 5 work mindset where, we're all humans, we all, function, we have lives outside of work, but the work never really stops and the you having a personal brand never really stops. So it's a good way to make yourself accessible and reach other people that way as well. So even Facebook, I still have professional connections, but primarily the content I'm posting is personal there. Instagram is a good mix of personal and professional. So I'm posting all my pictures of my kids, but I'm also posting all the stuff when I go to conferences, when I'm meeting with speakers, things like that. I'm posting all of the things there. And then Twitter, I love Twitter. I know Twitter gets a lot of hate sometimes, but I love Twitter especially for networking and for conferences. It is a huge tool for me. And we'll get into that a little more a little later. But that one is where I probably share the most professional content, articles and things like that. I'm not going to share those on Instagram because that's a visual platform. That one's more, pictures and videos and things like that. And if you guys have questions along the way, please feel free to stop me. I'm happy to discuss anything. So thinking about where to start after you've decided, what platforms you'd like to be relevant on, it's really important to create a bio for yourself that is real and an accurate representation of yourself. So while it's really cute to have a picture of your cat as your profile picture, people want to see you because a lot of the people that you interact with on social media are not people that, you talk with every day. So maybe they don't even know what you look like. And it's also important to have a current picture because if you are at a conference and you meet people, if you have a picture from 12 years ago that doesn't look like you anymore, people might not even know that it's you. So, and it's not hard. Everybody has a phone in their pocket. Those that take great pictures, have somebody take a picture for you. It doesn't have to be super professional and, but it's important that it's a representation of you. And then your bio. Think about 2 or 3 lines about yourself. When you introduce yourself to someone, what do you want them to remember about you? So for me, it's really easy. My kids, I have an addiction to Netflix that's probably, certifiable, and I'm kind of a nerd. So I love Harry Potter, I love D&D, things like that. Those are think about your 3 main things that if you're think about elevator pitch. So you're in an elevator, hi, what do you do? And you can quickly convey that information. That's what your bio should represent about you, what you want people to remember about you. And then another thing that I think is important is that you stay consistent across all of your networks. So, it's okay if you tailor things to your different audiences. I think that's important to do. But, try to have the same picture across all of them because people maybe want to connect with you in more than one place. So this makes it easy for them to find you. Same thing with like a username or an account name. You can be Bojangles on one, you can be like Clown Smurf on the other, and then your real name someplace. It's going to be really hard to find you. So try and be consistent across all your networks, even though you're tailoring your content to that audience. So the content may vary, but you should be consistent across all of them as a personal brand. So on when you're tailoring your content, for example, like on LinkedIn, you might not mention that you have 7 cats. That might be an Instagram thing. Another thing that I think is really important is to keep politics, religion, any sensitive topics out of that, unless that is the goal of your account. If you're trying to stir things up and be controversial and be an advocate for something, have a specific account for that and know that that is what that purpose is. That's the goal of that. And remember that if you have more than one account, because lots of people do, that people will find you there as well. And just think about what that says about you. If that's what you want to be known for, then that's great. Own it, and just keep that in mind across everything that you're doing. And then another thing, so along those lines, people might want to consider having a personal or professional account. That's a very common practice where sometimes people will have, 2 Twitter accounts. Maybe one is private because it's their personal one where they talk about more sensitive topics that maybe they don't want the opinions of others coming in. They don't want that to taint their others' view of them. However, everything on social media, whether it's private or not, is public information. So just keep that in mind. With privacy options, you can make your accounts public or private. You can decide, do I want everyone to see what I'm posting? Do I want everyone to be able to follow me and see what I'm saying? Or do I want to have to approve the people that are following me that are able to see my content? So those are options, but it's the internet, so we all know what happens there. It's there for everyone. So along those same lines, thinking about what you're saying, social media is forever. We at TechSmith make screen capture software, and you've seen in the news how that can blow up in someone's face where they delete a tweet. Those get archived. People have screenshot software. It doesn't go away. So if you're going to put it out there, keep your audience in mind. If you would not say it out loud, probably don't post it on social media. One of the things that I've learned in the time that I've been doing social media for TechSmith specifically, I talk with a lot of customers, and if you give someone a keyboard and a box to put whatever they want to say there, whether it's appropriate or not, or whether they would say it to your face or not. So just keep that in mind, and you have to have a little bit of a thicker skin too. Just be prepared for any responses you get. And then think about the longevity of what you're posting. If I look back 3 years at my posts, am I going to be embarrassed by what I said? Is it still going to be relevant? I mean, things, of course, over time won't be relevant anymore. That's to be expected, but is it something that you would still want to be known for? So think about that in terms of the content that you're posting as well to your network. And then think about, everybody has those people in their feed that, it's just so annoying. They just keep posting that one thing, and you're like, I don't want to hear this anymore. Don't be that person. If it annoys you, and don't post that content because your audience won't like it. And then along in that same vein, like, are you sharing an article? Is it something that you would read? Then maybe your audience would find it valuable. But keep that in mind as something, a guideline that if it's interesting to you and you would stop and read it, then it's worth sharing. If it's not, don't share it. And then there are different types of posts on all the different networks. They have a variety of different ways you can post. So you've got your post or your status update. So this is public. It goes on your feed where everyone can see it. They can reference it later. Then there are stories. So lots of various networks have stories where this is public, but it has a limited lifespan. It's usually about 24 hours. So you think about Instagram, Snapchat even has one, Facebook, and these I think are good. A good use of the story would be, I'm at an event and I have all these little things I want to share, but they're not things that necessarily need to live on in my timeline. They're time boxed. They will expire. So I don't necessarily need to talk about the coffee at a conference on my timeline feed unless it's so remarkable that I really want people to know about this for a long time. Put that in your story. You know, these little things that they still make you human, they still show your personality, and people can still connect with those, but maybe those go in your story. So that's a good way to differentiate, like a post versus a story post. There are also private or direct messages. So this is like a one-on-one conversation, like a text message or an email, where it's just you and one other person. It's not getting posted publicly. But again, you know, use common sense. Things get shared. Then you have the ability to retweet on Twitter or to share other people's content, either to your timeline or to your story even. And this is a good way to show support to others in your network. But I will caution to always read the content before you share it. It's really easy to just skim a headline and say, oh yeah, that sounds great, and then just share it. I've been guilty of this before with, you know, you see an article and it's like, oh, 7 tools to use for social media. Well, what if at the very bottom of that article it has, you know, some horrible blurb that the author said that you're unaware they have this opinion, and now you're sharing it with everyone. So that then becomes you validating that opinion. So make sure you're reading what you're posting. That's very important. And know your sources. There's tons of talk about fake news and things. Don't contribute to that. Make sure you know your source. If you're unsure, you know, go look at a couple other places to validate it and make sure you know what's being said. And then the most important thing when you're building your professional network is to engage. So if you share an article and someone responds, reply back to them. Engage with what the people you're following, engage with what they are sharing, you know, comment on it, start a conversation. That's very important. So make sure you're checking your notifications and things like that, especially if you're posting content. Make sure you're watching for responses and try to be timely about it, because if, you know, it's 2 weeks later. Yes?
That's exactly what I was going to ask. So
Oh.
I don't follow my, oops.
Oh.
I'm usually the one that's running around.
Hello. So I'm not very good at keeping up with my Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be months before I get back on there. And there have been people that will say, oh, I love that landscape. Or should I even respond at that point? Or is it just leave it alone?
It depends. Do you want it to become relevant again? Because a lot of times, you know, on Facebook especially, if you start responding to something, the more you respond to something, the more engagement that a post gets. Facebook will say, oh, people are interested in this, we're going to show it. So sometimes that can like revive an old post. So if you don't want to call attention to it, maybe just let it go. And if it's really important, they'll contact you again. You know, just like an email. I am really bad with emails, because a lot of times I'll have an email and it'll sit there for 2 weeks waiting for me to respond. And they'll just have to message me again because I have so much stuff going on. And, you know, at that point, just be honest. You're like, this is on me. I dropped the ball on this, or I didn't get back to you in time. Can we bring this up again, or something like that? But yeah, it can be hard to stay on top of things, especially the more content you post, the more engagement you're going to get. So just keep that in mind when you're doing that. But yeah. All right, so hashtags. Hashtags are an awesome way to be able to talk with people around a specific topic. They're not just for comedy, although I do appreciate a well-placed hashtag. Any word can be a hashtag, but that does not mean that it should. So there are different types of hashtags. There are brand hashtags. So we have one that's hashtag made in Camtasia that we try to put on our content that goes out that's made with Camtasia. And we try to encourage other people to use that one as well. And then there are other ones that are just topic hashtags. So maybe it's around a conference or a specific, maybe software testing is a hashtag that you can click on and look at all the conversations happening around that specific hashtag. One of the cool things on Twitter, if you are searching for a hashtag, at the top there are different results, like filters you can get. So that it always takes you to the top one. So that will show you the most relevant people that are using this hashtag and the most relevant content. So what has been engaged with most. I really also like the people tab in Twitter, because if you search for a hashtag, you go to the people tab, that will show you people who are getting the most engagement around this topic when they're using it. A lot of times it's people that have it in their bio. And that's a good way to find speakers that are, experts on the topic or who are known in whatever that area is. It's a good way to find those experts as well, and then you can follow them or join in the conversation. And so talking about who to follow, personally, obviously you want to follow your friends, your peers, your family, Aunt Shirley. That's fine. Professionally, your peers, brands that you support or want to engage with, information sites that you share stuff from, speakers at conferences that you relate to or you want to hear more information or maybe connect with them. If you're not finding value, though, you find that there's this one site or this one person that you follow that you always just scroll past. You never engage with their content. You don't, maybe you skim the headline, but it's never relevant enough to make you click on it. Unfollow them. Make sure your feed is for you to find valuable information. So if you're not finding value in it, don't be afraid to unfollow people. And then review the people that you're following. It's a direct reflection of you, the people that you are following. So when you're building your professional network, think about a potential employer. When they go and they check your social media sites, because they do, if you're only following the cast of Jackass from 10 years ago, what does that say about you as a person, as a brand? You probably want to make sure that you review those regularly. And then another good thing to think about is people that maybe you would like to have follow you. So a lot of people, if you follow them, they will follow you back out of, courtesy. But maybe that starts a conversation because you have common interests. Did you have something to add, Jeff?
So you can control who you follow, but what if you get these wonderful bots and different things that you really wish wouldn't follow you? Do you actively go in and try to combat that fight, or is it just accepted that things like that will eventually get attached to your accounts?
That's a really good point, really good question. So I recently went through this with Instagram. I do put a lot of pictures of my kids on Instagram, and I've never really worried about it because I'm in social media and I talk with a lot of outside people. And I decided to make my account private because I had a couple of accounts that would comment on posts about my kids, and it was nothing inappropriate, but it would say something very generic like, this account is fire emoji. And you're like, what is this? So you can go through and you can block people. They don't get a notification unless they go back and try to follow you or find you, and they can't, and they would really want to have to even notice that. They don't get a notification that they've been blocked or unfollowed. Don't be afraid to do that. A lot of times on things like Twitter, if you have fake accounts following you, that's okay as long as you're not following them back. But if you do notice it and it bothers you, you can always report it to Twitter and block them, and that will take them out so that they can't see your stuff anymore. But yeah, really good point. Yeah, Kristen?
So my question is about family members that post on their timeline or your timeline, and it's political or obnoxious, and you don't want to unfriend them because then you will hurt their feelings, and that starts a whole conversation you don't want to have. How do you filter that so people don't see it on your timeline? Can you make it so that they can't post on your timeline?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I've gone through this with my family as well. My family really likes to, take candid photos of like family events and then tag me in them where I'm like eating a piece of pizza or something. And you're like, why would you tag me in that? That's just rude. And, but they're not thinking about it because they're like, I look good in this photo, so I'm just going to, and you were there, I'll just tag you. So I have it set on Facebook, so you have to review everything that goes on your timeline. So I have to approve it to have it show up. So whether they tag me in it or not, whether that shows up to my friends, I have to approve that.
Can you single somebody out? Where it's just, I have to approve everything this person.
Ooh, I don't know if you can do it for specific individuals. And you can certainly unfollow people that without unfriending them. So like you have a really controversial uncle that posts fake
How do you know
news.
it's my uncle?
We all have an uncle. We all have an uncle. We all have an aunt that types Google searches into her Facebook status. It happens. But yeah, for people like that, you can just unfollow them without unfriending them, and then you don't see the things that they post unless you go back and refollow them or you go to their timeline. So yeah, there's always ways to kind of control your feed and make it what you want and what you want to be associated with. So, and like I said, everybody does have those aunts and uncles, so hopefully people aren't judging if, I didn't say this, Uncle Joe did. Like, it's not me. So yeah. Other good point. Yeah. Okay, so another tool that I find really valuable on Twitter specifically are lists. Lists are a great way to organize the people that you are following, or sometimes even people that you're not following, because you can subscribe to a list that someone else has created. You can create a list. It can be public or private, and so a lot of times you'll see this happen for conferences, where it'll be like a list of the speakers at the conference. And maybe you don't want to go in and follow 47 people individually. Maybe there's a few that you really want to see content from in your timeline, and you can do that. Otherwise, you can follow a list without following all the individuals on it, and that will have everyone's content appear in your timeline, in your feed, for you to consume. It's not that it's posting it for you. It's just for you to consume. But you can look at those lists separate from your timeline. There's different views in Twitter of what you can actually look at. So I find those really helpful. So I've got a few that I've created here on the left for like TechCom is a market that, I'm trying to meet more people in that market. Potentials, these are people that, maybe they've mentioned our products a few times, or, I think there's potential there for a future like partnership or something like that. I've got them on that list. I've got a marketing heroes list. So these are influential marketers according to me. These are the people that I look to for my marketing expertise and information. And then news. So I have one for my news sources where news is used loosely. A lot of that's entertainment, let's be real, like BuzzFeed. But you can see there's a little lock on some of them. So you can make them private. If it's public, other people can subscribe to it and follow it. And they can also see if they've been added to your list. This box down in the lower left corner, these are lists that other people have created that I subscribe to. So when I talked about using Twitter for conferences, this is a perfect example. This was a conference that I got added to this list, even though I was not at this conference. It was over in the UK. I got added to it because I've been engaging with all of the people that are there. And I can see everything that they're posting, almost like you're at the conference. I'm part of a social media marketing society, so that's a paid private community, but there's a list of all the members, so I can go and I can engage with those people there. And then there's a TechSmith team list that TechSmith has created. So all of you TechSmithies, if you want to be on it, go and check that out. See if you're on it. If not, we'll add you. And then you can see over on the right, this is what it looks like if, so this is my marketing heroes list. You can look at the members that are on the list, and I can see their bio of all of them, and I can follow individuals or not. I don't have to. These top ones I just happen to be following. And then you can also view like the feed of what they're posting. So that's also really helpful to look at just that specific group. So if you have like a software testers group, of your peers, you can go and you can look at just that list. And then I talked a little bit about social media for conferences. This again is my favorite way to use Twitter is for conferences. I have made lots of connections there that turn into friendships where we connect elsewhere on Instagram or Facebook, or then it goes to email or text, or there's something more that develops out of that, and maybe it just starts by following each other on Twitter at a conference. There's typically a hashtag to follow, so that's a great way while you're at a conference to see what's going on. Maybe there's a dinner that you can meet up with people in person, or maybe one session is full and there's another one that you want to go to. And then you can check speaker lists and attendee lists before you go, and you can connect ahead of time on Twitter and maybe even set up a time to have a conversation, grab coffee or something at the conference. If there's a conference you can't attend, follow the hashtag on Twitter, and people are constantly sharing pictures of slides, their favorite takeaways from talks that they're at. You can get a lot of information without even going to a conference where maybe it's $1,000 ticket plus your travel and hotel. You can just go to Twitter and you can find out what other people are learning at the conference. So really valuable tool, and a good way to find out if a conference would be worth going to even. So I just want to talk for a minute about live video. That's a huge thing right now, and a lot of people go live that maybe shouldn't, or a lot of people go live that you maybe tune in, you're excited, and then you're like, what are you talking about? It is a great opportunity for a creator to engage with their audience and share something. So a lot of people that I've seen that do this well, and there are tons of live video experts. So if you go to YouTube, Owen Video is someone that is a TechSmith customer, and we work with him all the time. He has so many good tips on his channel about what makes a good video, how to interview people, how to look good on camera. He had one yesterday that was about interjecting comedy into your content, whether it's a boring topic or not. And I was like giggling to myself at my desk to the point that my office mate was like, "What are you watching?" He just does a fantastic job, and he's really engaging. And so if you need a live video expert, I would definitely recommend Owen Video and check him out. As a viewer, you get a notification for anyone you're following if they go live. If you can interact with them right then when they're on camera. So this same Owen Video, who does this is his income, this is his life. He also will go live with his kids playing games with Alexa, and it's hilarious. And you can go and you can interact and leave comments real time, and he'll talk back with you as if you're there, part of the conversation. These videos also are recorded and posted after. So if you do miss one, you get a notification that someone's live, you can't see it right now, you can still access that later and see. You just miss out on that real-time engagement, but you can still comment like it's a regular post. And there are tons of other resources for professional networking across the different tools. Madeline Sklar is one that I would highly recommend for Twitter specifically. Today at 1 o'clock, actually, every Thursday at 1 o'clock, she does a Twitter Smarter Twitter chat. And if you've never participated in a Twitter chat, it can be a little intense. There are tools like, I think Tweet Chat is one that I've used, where you put in a hashtag and you all at the same time talk about a specific topic. There's typically a moderator who will post questions to the group, and then you can see everyone's responses because everyone's using that same hashtag for this 1 hour. They're going to talk about this topic, and it can be really valuable. You can make some really good connections there, find out who in your space knows something or says something that you like maybe, and then you can maybe follow up with them later and talk more, or just follow them and see what else they have to say. You can also participate in those. Anyone can participate if you just use the hashtag at that time. Yeah.
That is something that I was going to mention between the
Awesome.
hashtag and the live. It's definitely a really good resource for, I know in the testing community, I believe Ministry of Testing has actually done some Twitter chats.
Oh, cool.
And then I know that there's a couple others that I've seen come through, but it is intense, like Jessie was saying, trying to keep up and answer questions and consume all the content, but it's live content. You know that you're getting the actual interaction without actually being there or waiting for somebody to reply like an actual Twitter response.
Yeah, definitely. And she's just got tons of really good tips on just being present on social and building your brand too. So another good resource to check out. And I would also encourage everyone, we've talked a lot about the content you're posting and thinking about your audience and things like that. Be human, be yourself, because people will appreciate that so much more. You don't need to put on like a fake personality for your presence, because when someone meets you in person, they should know what they're getting into. One of my favorite examples of this is Brian Fanzo. He's iSocialFans, FANZ, on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere. And his big thing is be yourself. And so he has it written into all of his speaker contracts that he's going to wear a hat and sneakers on stage. You can tell him, he'll send you a picture of his sneakers in his closet, and you can say, okay, I want the red ones, and he'll match a hat to it, but that is him, and that's what you get. And he's going to wear a t-shirt, and he's going to have, his slides are going to be all animated GIFs from the 80s, and like, he is a what you see is what you get guy. And one of my favorite talks that he did, because he would go live a lot, was he was talking about his, it was like his most engaged with live video that he did. He went live, and he's a big Instagram and Snapchat advocate too. So he wears like the what are they called? Spectacles. He wears the spectacles, so the Snapchat glasses, and he does it well. You know, you see him do it, and you're like, oh, now I understand why that's a thing. But my favorite one he talked about was where he was showing his desk setup, where he had a standing desk setup, and he tried to demonstrate it, and something slipped, and his beer spilled, and the computer fell. He caught the computer, but the beer spilled everywhere. And people thought that was not only hilarious that you have a beer while you're live streaming, but like that was so genuine. Like that happened in the moment. You could not have scripted that. And so I personally respect that about people, when they can just be themselves, be real. You know what you're getting into. So like if I have a conversation with this guy, I know that, you know, he's gonna swear a little bit, and that's okay. You know that going in, because he's just real and genuine, and so people really do appreciate that about you. It doesn't mean you have to drink beer on live video or do anything crazy, but just be yourself, because that's how people connect with you. And then, especially talking about Twitter chats, it can seem overwhelming, but there are apps out there to help you manage things. I would highly recommend getting an app for social media management if you're going to have more than one account. It just makes it a lot easier. The native apps themselves work pretty well, not necessarily for multiple accounts, but you know, all my notifications and you know, simple day-to-day stuff that I'm doing, I just use the native apps. At TechSmith, we have Sprout Social, which is more of an enterprise tool to manage multiple accounts. But there are other tools that have free versions available. Hootsuite and Buffer are two of the big ones that I would highly recommend. One of the nice things about those is that you can schedule content ahead of time, because it can be really hard to post content and keep a regular cadence of content going out. And that's really important when you're engaging with people, is to make sure that you're active. Whether you're saying something, sharing something, engaging with people. One of the things that I think is a really good practice is if you can set aside, you know, an hour each week, like, you know, okay, Monday from 4 to 5, I'm going to go into my sources, I'm going to find articles that I want to share out for the rest of the week. You can go into an app like Hootsuite or Buffer, and you can schedule those for the whole week. So say you have an article that's going to be shared Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Maybe you don't post on the weekends, but set yourself a schedule and make time to review content, decide what you're going to share, schedule it. And then that doesn't mean that you can't share stuff real time, but that kind of gives you an even presence, so that there's not big gaps of absences, which I am very guilty of, especially on Twitter. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, with the scheduling of posts, if you try to schedule something a couple days in advance, but you know it's like a hot topic or something that a lot of people are talking about prior to that post going live, do you still schedule it? Or is it at that point not relevant, since people have already talked about it and discussed it at that point?
That's a good point. Yeah, you should also think about the timing of what you're scheduling. Is it a time-sensitive thing? Then you want to post it at that time. Or maybe you're promoting something ahead of time and you want to do it beforehand. And then, so the things you would want to schedule are more of the like evergreen type content that doesn't have a time limit to it. It's not going to expire at some point and be not relevant next week if someone reads it then. So yeah, that's a really great point. So schedule stuff that is more of that evergreen content. And then I can't stress this enough, engage. Go and comment on other people's stuff, share their stuff, reply to people who comment or like your stuff. Even new followers, you can even see when someone follows you, you can reach out and say, hey, thank you. There are automated tools that will set that up too, where maybe you have a thing that automatically says, hey, thanks for following me, excited to engage with you more, and maybe gives them something else like your email or something if they need to reach out more directly. So quick recap. Social is great for your professional network building because it breaks down the walls. You can access anybody and they can access you. When you're thinking about content and things you're sharing, consider your audience, the actual content, and your intended outcome, your goals. Make yourself a real bio. Make sure people know that when they're connecting with you, they're connecting with the real you. Social media is forever, does not go away, so take a pause before you post things. Follow people judiciously because that is a reflection of you and your personal brand, and make sure you engage with people. And that's all I have for slides. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions, but that's it for me.
Another question, since you brought up following people, how do you get people to follow you?
Engage with them. Reach out to them, start a conversation, and if they find it valuable or they're finding value in the conversation, they'll follow you back. I know a lot of bigger names or brands, they might not follow you back right away, and there are lots of people where I've been connecting with them for a long time, and then we realize, like, oh my gosh, we're not even connected on LinkedIn. Like, how is that possible? Because once you start that relationship, you're like, oh, I have to follow you on all the channels, and but yeah, just ask. Ask them to follow you back or just follow them. That's usually a good start. And then if they're finding value in the conversation or the content, then they'll follow you back. So, yeah, good question. Anybody else? Or any tips? Anything I missed? Anything confusing? No?
A tip that I've got is definitely use Hootsuite to help with the Twitter chats and managing the multiple profiles. And also if you have Instagram and Facebook, well, Instagram, you could, if the picture is something you want to share to other like social media types, you can select the setting in there to broadcast it across, so you don't have to do individual posts on Facebook and Twitter.
Yep, I do that with Instagram. I post almost everything to Facebook as well, just because I'm most active on Instagram, but then I do have a different audience on Facebook that also interacts with those photos. So I might not share everything there. I don't like sharing to Twitter from Instagram because it doesn't embed the picture. It just gives you a link to the Instagram post. So that's not a great experience. So that's it's handy, but you also want to make sure you're testing and checking how that experience is for the people that are following you, and you might have to do separate posts. Some of those tools, though, will let you post to multiple networks as well.